things that we work on fishing is very quiet this time of year. Being able to fish in this, all these things in your way, and being able to position the boat and try to be stealthy. Spawning time is one of the times whereas when you're fishing, patience, the cast is so important, and allowing that bait, to sit there right where that fish is and not move it too much. Tendency is anglers just have a tendency to work bait too dang fast. I said it once, I said it twice. It's the concept of that guy who sits on the dock, come back 5 hours later and see he's got on a stringer, he's got a 9-pounder on a stringer. It's because he was not paying attention and that fish bit. Look at this, buckitis. This one's smaller than a buck. It's 50 cents. Mother Nature. Reminds me of back when I was in high school. All the guys chasing one woman. The loose one. I have found the honey hole of the midget fish. When you're talking about early springtime and the weather, as you can see, the weather's changing left and right. You're just, the best way to do it is just to hunker down. I'm downsizing everything. I'm using a Zappu head with a power worm, 8-pound test, and I'm not throwing this baby into the junk because I'm not a fool, because I'm outmanned. You catch an 8-9-pound fish in that junk with 8-pound test, you're going to play havoc trying to get him out. But what this does do, it allows me to fish the outside edge and allows the bait to move more. Now, don't get me wrong, you can throw the heavier line, but your bait doesn't maneuver as the same way with the heavier line than the lighter line. So the lighter line, as you're working that bait, as these fish start to migrate towards the backs of these areas, they'll sit and stage outside, they'll start moving back inside. And when you're working these different baits out here, trying to keep your bait in contact with the bottom, fishing shallow water, typically when you move the bigger line, you're lifting that bait up, and every little movement, it accents it because of the bigger line. Now when you work in the lighter line, the accent's a lot different, the rod's a lot different. The bait can hold fast to the location a lot easier. So if you talk to guys like Don Ivino, who is the master, the absolute master, the godfather of the light tackle concept, he'll tell you, that light line, by just moving it just barely, keeps that bait in that zone, that location. And so it's so important to deal with all type of fishing. You're going to fish deep water, shallow water, to understand how these baits work in all concepts of deep, shallow, rocky, weedy, knowing your terrain. And when you start working a bait in an area to where that the fish migrate to that area, I'll tell you what, you guys can have a better shot if you downsize a little more, get more bites. Now you might lose a couple fish, don't get me wrong. Oh man, that fish was huge, your rod's bent over, double, and all of a sudden it snaps. But dude, you got bit. That was the key. Before you weren't getting bit, and now you got bit, and you lost him. Oh, you got bit. You got to get the bite before you bring the fish in. That's the bottom line. That's what I'm saying. So we're maneuvering ourselves back into little areas, and we're trying to get these bites where these fish will start to migrate. That's what we're going to do. We're just working our way in and around, trying to find a little covey of fish. Fishing's been tough for everybody. Everybody's crying the blues. and everybody's throwing big baits to the bank because that's what spring does. And here I am, with my little itchy wacky, my little bitty power worm, and I'm staying real small, downsizing everything, and just trying to get bit. And the more bites I get, now I'll catch a lot of little fish, don't get me wrong, but I'm catching fish, I'm keeping motivated, you know, tick, 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 and all of a sudden, whack, wow, that's a nice fish. At the end of the day, if I can sit there and pull in my, 15 to 20 plus pounds, I've done well. I can't worry about other anglers, you know. They're doing what they're doing, they're fishing the way they're doing, and I'm trying to get bit and trying to keep in focus with those fish. All I can do is my deal, not their deal. That's all you can ask, you know. People always concerned about themselves. Oh, I wonder what's his name's doing. What's his name doing? He's doing that, or he's doing this, or hey man, you know, I fish my fish. You know, fish the way you do your best and adjust to your. If you're a trout fisherman and you want to become a bass fisherman, fish your light line, have a good time. So what if you break off a couple times? Probably getting more fish. Got to get bit. There he is. There he is, exactly. You know, we've been catching a lot of little ones, and now, you know, you keep banging these little ones and banging the little ones, and now you got a fish that's worth a dang right in these weeds. Oh yeah. He is not happy. Come on up. Come to daddy. Doesn't even know he's hit. Nice. Doesn't even know. Fish is cold. Come on up. Come on up. Let's go to plate. Catch it. Oh, just out of sight. Not good. Not good. That's a tournament foobar right there. That's not good. Here he comes. Come on, one more time. Gotcha. Oh, big fat bass. Right in the corner. Just perfect. I'm telling you what, you start playing, you catch a little one, catch a little one, catch a little one, all of a sudden, dink, there you go. Nice 3-pounder right there. Nice 3 1/4. Beautiful fish. You know, catching fish is catching fish. Getting bit is better than catching fish, because the more bites you got, the more chances of catching fish. Try it again. Let's go and get some more. Nice.
Hi, this is Joe Kopp, and we're here today talking about knots, and I want to talk a little bit about the Berkley line. We're using big game today, and I want to show you a little bit some techniques to improve your knot tying. If you've been living under a rock, then you haven't heard about it. Otherwise, everybody knows about the Palomar knot, and it's a very effective knot that can be used under light line as well as heavy line. What I want to show you today is a few tricks on how you can improve your success in tying that knot, making sure that as you put those two leads through the eye, you don't want them to twist, you want them to be parallel. If they get twisted like this at all, you lose over 50% of the knot strength. So I want to show you a few tricks today. With the Palomar knot, you want to double your line through, so you want to put that through very easily. Oop. Now, the number one thing that most guys do is they just start grabbing this line together and trying to tie it up. What I want you to do is do this trick, what I call the cradle. See how you can hold this line in your hand and you can make sure that those lines are not twisted? That gives you a better and sure possibility that you're not going to twist that line before you get started. Now, to tie the Palomar, it's very simple. You just do a very simple loop and do an overhand like you're tying your shoestrings. You just pull that loop through and hold it tight. Now, another mistake that most fishermen do is they grab this loop and pull it down to go over their bait, and they twist their hand like this. I want you to avoid grabbing that line at all, and instead reach in and grab your bait and pull it up through your line. That will ensure that you don't give that bait a twist. You see how I've tucked my hand under and pulled that loop out? Because the last thing you want to do is you want to grab that bait and put your finger in the front here and start tightening it down on your finger. That way you're not tightening down onto your clip, and you're not getting it tangled up in your jig hair or your spinner baits. From here, the most important thing is you want to wet your line. Most guys lick their line, but they really don't wet it enough. What I want to show you is what I use on my boat. I put a sponge in a bucket. This way you really get that wet. Look how wet that's coming out. That's the kind of wet I'm talking about, so that you get that knot to slide down nice and smooth. See how easy that slides down? That knot is going to cinch down really tight and be really secure up against that split ring. That's a good knot. That knot's going to give us 95% or higher on every pull test. I built a machine right here. It's a knot machine. We test these knots, and I'm going to show you today that with that extra tricks and extra care in tying your Palomar, you should be able to get a knot that's 95 or better. Again, we're tying 15-pound braid or 15-pound mono on big game. We're going to see what we get out of that knot today. 15.84. So there I can show you that by doing those tricks, it's going to allow you to take the knot out of the equation and get a good hook set on that fish and ensure that whatever pound test you're using, you're going to get that full strength out of that line. Give it a try, Berkley Big Game.
Never too early to think about frogs. This is the new Fat Frog, designed by Ish Monroe from Snag Proof. You'll notice that longer, slender body, a little bit easier walking action. It's got that nice big EWG hook. The one thing, obviously, that you'll notice as far as Snag Proof goes is all the different colors that they're making them in. More lake type of specific colors. But new product available at Bass Tackle Depot. Another new frog from the people at True Tungsten, the Mad Max frog. You'll notice those long tails on there for when you're walking the dog. Slimmer design, softer body so it compresses easier, has tungsten rattles inside, and also has a keel design which enables it to help you walk the dog a little bit easier. And it's got that long tail for a nice good swishing action. The Mad Max frog, available at BassTackleDepot.com.
A little shallow buck. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We're fishing the California Delta. It's springtime. Out here Senko fishing down on the river. It's a great start to a morning. A nice chunky little buck up getting ready to spawn. Solid 3-pound fish. That's an auspicious start. You know, this spring's been a little different and a little difficult this year with the weather changes we've had. You know, we haven't had any real stable weather. When we've had a few days, these fish are moving up shallow, and then we get those cold fronts come in and it's just backing them right off. And this recent storm we just had has moved a lot of fish up shallow. We're down around the docks here on Bethel Island, and we're just throwing Yamamoto Senkos. Today we're going to go out and play a little bit on the river, show you a little bit what I'm doing out here to catch fish, and be a little bit more consistent as these fish are just now starting to move up. We can see down here right now, one of the areas that these fish are hanging in is where there's a lot of slop and cheese and grass growing, especially around these docks. And it allows them to be able to get way up in the back up against the retaining walls, where when that tide falls out, you've got sun coming down, gives them good incubation on those eggs. They're protected. You know, a lot of anglers, we come out, and tournament guys and weekend anglers, and a lot of times we'll pass over fishing through a lot of this stuff. And the key thing is there are fish all throughout underneath these docks right now because they've just moved up and they're roaming. The bucks are up there typically around a pylon or something, or an open area where they're starting to claim their area. And females are roaming all around the shade of these docks. We've had a lot of excess sun the last couple days, and these females are just kind of hanging around the outer edges, and the bucks are all the way up against the wall in the shallow. So it's real important that you get out and make these long casts. You also got to have a pretty hefty trolling motor to fish some of this stuff on this particular pattern, because you got to be able to get into that thick, heavy grass. But if you're not fishing around that real thick, heavy grass right now, where it's either cheesy and mossy everywhere and you're looking for holes down in the grass where you see the yellow spots where these fish have been moving in and out and setting up their beds, you're not likely to be in a neighborhood where you're catching a lot of fish. We've just had the last 2.5 months, you know, here it is mid-May, and these fish, we're really starting to get our real first wave. We've had a couple big waves of fish come up, but this last storm that we've had has drove a lot of giant fish up. There have been isolated fish on beds. You'll see in some of the areas that we get to later today, I'll explain, you know, what I look for out there besides this, because there's some definite keys on where these fish are setting up throughout the river. It's kind of cool now that we can get around some of these marinas and docks where these fish are setting up, and really some of the best docks, you know, the key is that sun right there. And the best areas to select are areas that are on the west bank that are facing east, or that are on the north bank facing south, because those are the ones that get that sun that beat down them all day. And the cool thing on these docks down here, all throughout Piper and Sandmount and Taylor, is that as that sun gets up behind the afternoon, the tree lines and the docks, it's shining down and creating shade pockets down there where it really warms that area up back there in the shallow water. So those fish are getting up there and they're getting real comfortable and they're staying in there. Water temperature's finally starting to stabilize. It's about 61 degrees right now this morning due to the cold fronts, but it's come up and it's stabilized, and that's what it takes for these fish to stay and remain shallow. You know, when that water temperature runs up to 67 degrees and then it drops 6, 7, 8 degrees like it's been happening all month long, these fish don't want to stay shallow. They're going to go back down with that water temperature still sitting at 59, 60 degrees, and it's not dipping much further below that. When they get up shallow, that drastic temperature drops really affects these Florida large strain on this river. She's swimming in a danger zone with those four. Another slop fish on that Senko. Little guy. Ain't as good as we thought. Little chunky bass. So it appears this morning the 3 fish that we caught on these Senkos, they're back up in this slop here, but where they're keying right now seems to be on the shaded side where that sun is just now starting to hit on the right hand sides of these docks. Another nice chunky bass. So the 3 fish that we caught this morning, we're kind of putting a little pattern here together on these fish on these docks right now. This one was again up and underneath that walkway, and it seems like these fish are right to the left of the walkways on the right hand, actually on the right hand side. You can see back up underneath that hose, there's a little hole in there where that sun is running in. That fish was sitting right in there. I fished all through underneath these trees and never got bit, but the first cast I made up underneath that walkway, I got bit, and that's exactly where I got the other 3 fish that I've caught this morning. So we're going to run down, we'll hit a couple more of these and see if we can follow that pattern, and then we're going to run off and show you another thing. Another little guy, don't worry about it. Little babies. I caught a toad bigger than you the other day. Yes, I did. Little guy. That toad I caught was bigger than you too. Now we're catching them Cooch Cuccia gadfish. we go. Little buck moving up, changed up, moved into one of the big flooded lakes here on the river. We're now pitching that drop shot. You know, that drop shot has been a real effective technique for me this spring. I've probably used it more this spring than I have at any other time. Even on these calm days and rough days and hard weather days, you know, where it's raining and windy, that drop shot's really been a productive technique for me. I'm using a little robo sculp in here, and one of the things that I found on these drop shot fish is that right now you got to have that weight about 6 to 8 inches off the bottom. If you got it any closer where it's on the bottom, you know, when they're not eating that Senko or they're not eating the Texas rigs, they just, because they're not up there really guarding beds yet, they're just kind of moving into these areas and staking their claim. And you know, anything that's just sitting on the bottom, bang, 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 bang on the bottom, they really don't care anything about it. But if you throw that drop shot in there and give it about 8 inches off the bottom and just sit there and shake it, they come and get it. And I'm using, you know, a medium heavy action 7-foot rod, pitch and flipping rod. I got 20-pound fluorocarbon on here, using a 2-aught Yamamoto Sugoi hook, you know, just a regular worm hook so that I can plug it in, you know, and fish that bait weedless. Then I got a 1/4 ounce weight. I like the heavier weights because it allows me to be able to pitch and flip into all these pockets. And we've come through and fished a few areas here where we've been throwing a Senko and throwing a Senko. We've been throwing a Texas rig and not get bit. I know these fish are here. And I just picked this drop shot up and said, okay, it's time to go to work and start catching some fish. And sure enough, about the 3rd cast, I get that one. And you know, this area that we're working here, and one of the things that I found this spring, so you pull into an area and you see a lot of dark grass bottom, and it's good to get in here in a low tide so you can see it. You want to find areas on these northern banks, these western banks that are facing that sun, that are getting pounded, where you can see the yellow, you know, where you don't see all dark bottom, because that's a strong indicator that these fish, you know, are moving up in that area. You may go in there on certain days and not get bit because of these cold fronts pushing them off, but that yellow bottom is a huge indicator for you that fish are using that area. Especially you get into some of these places where you'll be going down the bank for 100 yards and it'll just be dark and weedy and thick, and then you'll come into a section that's just loaded. Now, we've had a lot of wind the last couple weeks, and I've moved over on this side, actually over to a southern bank. The water's a little more stained in here. It's not quite as clear, and this little drop shot's been working pretty good on this kind of stuff when we find it. We've got that nice open water there, and we've got lots of yellow in here with there's some wood, and you got the tules and everything. And right now, if you're not in and around that slop where they're getting, this is the kind of areas that you want to be looking for. And that drop shot's a deadly technique. This one I got on here is a Witch's Tea Robo Sculp and that FX worm. It's a discontinued color, unfortunately. But they've been eating this thing pretty good for me. It's one of my favorite drop shot baits.
Hey D, how you doing?
Hey Chad, how you doing?
Pretty good. How's the fishing today?
It's tougher than a hoot owl out there today, but we caught a few little ones.
I gotta ask you a question. How do you stay so consistent in what you do when you do the FLWs and Angler's Choice? You're always in the money. You're always right there. How do you stay so consistent?
My secret weapon has basically been these right here. Bass West magazine. Bass West USA has all the latest Western bass angling techniques. With the most current information and the latest on swim baits, every bass angler should subscribe to Bass West USA.
Oh man, I'm all out of that bomber crankbait. Yeah, Fast Tackle Depot? Well, I'm on the water, I'm out of bait. I need some 6A red bombers, chartreuse and blue. Fast you can get them here. Extra special delivery from Bass Tackle Depot. Dude, you're a blessing. Bass Tackle Depot does it again, rain or shine. Good luck, man. Go get an extra delivery. Thank you, BassTackleDepot.com.